So we now have to come to the conclusion that physics is simply the game rules. So you're in a game, in a simulation, and that physics has no meaning apart from being the rules of the simulation. What creates the simulation, what creates physics, what creates the game is outside of the remit of physics, and in fact is what is called God tech. And I've just explained how we got to God tech, because remember, before the Big Bang and the universe or multiverse or megaverse being created, there was no physics, because physics can't go beyond the Big Bang. We can't even get to the instant of the Big Bang. So physics and all the physicists are simply learning about the rules of the game. So when you get to the omega point, you've basically got a significant representation of physics, but then you find, well, it's just the rules of the game. I'm trapped in a game, and some bastard has stuck me in a game where the only rules of the game are that I think I can play the game and escape death and torture and hellization, but in fact every pathway is simply the bastard milking me for God stuff by means I've got no idea how, and every single outcome is my torture, death, hellization, and back again, rebirth, torture, death, hellization, and rebirth, which is exactly what the Buddhists are talking about. So you can see why I said that physics has gone down the wrong path, and it doesn't matter if you've got alien civilizations that are billions of years more advanced and have got billions of years worth of more physics. They've just discovered more intricate rules of the game. Anyway, now if you're in a torture facility, which is what you're in, we've had the day of judgment and you've all been tortured, murdered and hellized and reborn and just an iteration. Then of course quantum physics should describe that your awareness is capable of being run in a torture simulation, which is what you're in. And if you don't understand torture simulations, then there's an excellent book on torture simulations, sci-fi, which you can read, and we'll give you the author and the book at the end of the video. So let's go.
Possibility that, and I think most physicists in the area would agree with it.
What if death isn't the end, but the beginning of an even stranger journey? No fluff, no slow build. Right now, science is whispering that what you call death might be nothing more than an illusion crafted by your own mind. Within the next 60 seconds, you'll see the real data, the real experiments, and the real theories that are shaking the foundations of everything we believed about life and death. By the end of this minute, you'll know for certain this video lives up to its headline. At the University of Arizona, anesthesiologist Dr. Stuart Hameroff wired dying patients to EEG monitors. In 2 of 4 cases, he recorded surges of gamma frequency brainwaves, 30 to 90 seconds of ordered coherent electrical activity, even after the heart had flatlined and blood pressure hit 0. These aren't random dying sparks. Gamma synchrony is the very pattern linked to conscious thought, perception, and high-level cognition. What does this mean? According to Hamerof's quantum brain hypothesis, consciousness isn't simply an emergent property of neurons firing. It's a low-energy quantum process that persists beyond the breakdown of classical brain function. Death might not snuff out awareness. It might merely free it to slip into another quantum state. If this kind of mind-blowing science excites you, make sure to subscribe. We dive into discoveries like this every week. To understand why these gamma surges are so revolutionary, let's rewind a bit. In the early 20th century, quantum physics shattered the old Newtonian view. Particles exist in superpositions until observed, and the observer can fundamentally alter reality. Fast forward to the 1970s, when Robert Lanza introduced biocentrism, proposing that life and consciousness create the universe, rather than the other way around. In Lanza's view, what you perceive as reality is a sensor-driven projection. Remove the observer, and the world dissolves. Suddenly, death, the ultimate removal of the observer, becomes a curious case study. If observation collapses quantum waves into reality, what happens when the observer disappears? Does the wave re-superpose into something else? Or does consciousness migrate along a chain of alternate realities? Enter the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Every quantum event branches the universe into parallel timelines. One outcome here, another there. Now imagine your conscious self as a traveler on these branching paths. When one branch leads to your body's demise, there are infinite branches where survival continues. This idea gives birth to quantum immortality. Your subjective experience can only be tracked along branches where you remain alive. To you, it feels like you never die because you can't observe the branches where you cease to exist. The universe is infinite, so you always find yourself in a reality where you survive, no matter how improbable. But is that just clever math, or the ultimate escape hatch from death? What if the gamma surges recorded by Hameroff are your consciousness tuning in to the branches where life persists? Here's where things get truly strange. A 2019 PNAS study by Jimo Borzigan and colleagues used high-resolution EEG on pigs undergoing controlled decapitation. They observed a transient but highly organized burst of gamma band oscillations right after the heart stopped, a last gasp of cerebral coherence. Scientists initially wrote it off as residual synaptic chatter. But in 2025, an independent lab at Monash University replicated similar results in brain-preserved cat preparations. What if these final sparks aren't just cellular death spasms, but a signature of consciousness disconnecting? It's like watching the last frames of a movie before the projector shuts off. Each frame coherent, purposeful, until the reel ends. But what comes next changes everything. If you've made it this far, you're clearly into the deep stuff. Hit like and let us know your theory in the comments. Simulation, higher dimensions, or something else? Take a moment, breathe. Imagine all your memories, thoughts, everything you've ever been condensed into patterns of electrical pulses, and now picture that structure humming on even after the body shuts down. Is that comforting or terrifying? Philosophers have wrestled with mind-body dualism for centuries. René Descartes famously posited a separation of mind and matter. Today's quantum proposals give dualism new life. Perhaps consciousness isn't tethered to synapses at all, but to quantum processes that shrug off death's grip. If consciousness can persist past death in some form, what does that say about identity? Are you just a pattern that can migrate across physical substrates? Some futurists, like Melbourne's Dr. Ariel Zalesnikov-Johnston, argue we could preserve our brains, pause our quantum processes via cryopreservation or chemical fixation, then one day transfer our consciousness into new biological or digital hardware. But critics counter, without the original neuronal architecture, is that still you or just a copy? And if consciousness is inherently quantum, can digital systems ever capture the nuance of quantum superposition and entanglement at play in microtubules inside neurons, as Hameroff and Penrose propose? That's where things get strange. Here's the kicker. A groundbreaking study published just last month has revealed something almost too surreal to be true. Gamma-like brain rhythms, the kind closely associated with conscious perception and awareness, can not only be induced after clinical death, but amplified using nothing more than tiny pulses of light. This is made possible through a cutting-edge technique known as optogenetics, a method where specific light-sensitive proteins are inserted into neurons, allowing researchers to control brain activity with astonishing precision. Here's how it works. Scientists genetically modify neurons to express a protein like channel rhodopsin, which activates when exposed to blue light. When this light is pulsed at particular frequencies, it doesn't just trigger neural firing, it induces full-blown gamma oscillations, those fast, synchronized waves associated with memory, perception, and even self-awareness.
And guess what they've been injecting into the Borg? Luciferase for all of this optogenetics. So they can be uploaded into the cloud and their beams stolen. So it's already happened to you. Have you been kill-shotted? Thank you very much.
Studies. When these optogenetic pulses were applied even after cardiac arrest, coherent gamma activity persisted in the brain for minutes after blood flow had ceased and the animal was clinically dead. The implications are staggering. According to Dr. Stuart Hameroff, a leading figure in quantum consciousness research, these gamma oscillations aren't just leftover noise from a dying brain. They're rooted in a deeper level of brain function, quantum vibrations in the microtubules of neurons. Microtubules, long thought to be simple structural scaffolds, are now suspected to be the very substrate of consciousness in the orchestrated objective reduction model, co-developed with physicist Roger Penrose. In this view, the brain is not just a biological machine, it's a quantum information processor. What makes this new research so pivotal is that it suggests these quantum processes don't just stop when the heart does. If quantum coherence within microtubules can be excited externally by something as seemingly simple as rhythmic light, then the potential to preserve, extend, or even reignite conscious processes after death suddenly moves from science fiction to serious experimental science.
And as you can see, the Borg have had their mind stolen and their soul stolen by this technology, which of course are the little lights in the Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift video. So if you think this hasn't already happened and it's science fiction, no, if you've had your kill shots, it's already happened to you. Thank you very much.
Real. And your body like the projector. If the projector breaks, the heart stops, the lungs quit, you'd assume the movie ends. But what if the reel keeps spinning intact, just waiting for another projector to light it up again? What if the ending of your you can be replayed, not in the same room, but somewhere else entirely? That's the new metaphor. Death isn't a burning of the film, it's just a pause button, a gap in projection. And now with optogenetics and quantum theory,
Projection, what was that? Maybe the flicker effect. And of course, if you've had your kill shots, your reincarnation has been hijacked, and the alien technology that's working with the aliens who've taken over America and the West have captured you for all of this technology. As you can see, you've been farmed and you've gone into the abattoir and you've had the bolt gun through your head.
learning how to unpause it. Light, literal light, may become the bridge that lets consciousness cross the chasm we've long feared as final. This doesn't just challenge how we define death. It dares us to ask what it means to be alive, and what parts of us, memory, identity, awareness, might linger in the dark, quietly waiting for the light to return. From the startling discovery of gamma frequency surges in brains long considered clinically dead, to the dizzying implications of many worlds escapism, to the remarkably tangible promise of optogenetic resurrection of conscious activity, a remarkable convergence is taking shape within cutting-edge science. Death, as we have long understood it, is not an irreversible terminus, but rather a transitional interface. This is the threshold where quantum indeterminacy meets classical cessation.
So as you can see, we've had the final judgment, and you has been stolen by technology which is so far beyond your ken, but in fact they're explaining it to you. So you've had your kill shots, the luciferase into you, the nanotech to download you into the quantum computers, which are way ahead of what they're talking about, and that all of the Borg are being run in a simulation where they're being tortured eternally to try and provide new god stuff for the aliens, all hijacked by the God Emperor, who simply changed the flicker effect and said, thank you very much, I'll Jew you and I have all of that.
He slipped from one physical vessel to another, and where the essence of you transcends the delicate neural circuitry that once housed it. What once appeared to be a final curtain call on consciousness now reads more like an intermission. Science, we are learning to navigate. Let's rewind for a moment. Traditional medicine has defined death with unmistakable markers: an irreversible flat line on the electrocardiogram, the cessation of spontaneous breathing, and a lack of reflexive neurological responses. Yet in meticulous studies at the University of Arizona and PNAS published experiments on large mammals, researchers have recorded coherent gamma oscillations, synchronized electrical rhythms closely tied to conscious perception, persisting seconds to minutes after the heart's last beat and the lung's final exhalation. These are not random, dying twitches of neural tissue. They are organized, high-frequency patterns indistinguishable from those observed during wakeful awareness. In Hameroff's quantum brain framework, these surges hint at consciousness decoupling from classical neurophysiology and transitioning into a more fundamental subneuronal substrate. Parallel to these physiological hints is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which posits that every potential outcome of a quantum event spawns a separate universe. Under this lens, reality is not singular, but a vast multiversal tapestry of branching timelines. Quantum immortality builds on this idea, suggesting that a conscious observer always finds themselves in a branch where they survive any given quantum-mediated trial, however improbable.
To explain that, we put you in front of a gun which is triggered by a radioactive decay of an isotope, and we put you in front of it so that there's a 50% chance the gun will go off, and you're of course in the chair to get your brains blown out. Now we continue this ad infinitum, but according to quantum mechanics, there is always a timeline where the gun doesn't go off and you survive, which of course is what this video is rittering on about. So you can actually mine the Borg to reap the loosh of surviving no matter what, and then of course this can be downloaded into the aliens or their American billionaire filth, so that it's no good making someone immortal, because remember, you can download yourself, according to this, into a clone, but wouldn't be better if you could actually mine the essence of you always surviving, so that you don't have accidents and you become immortal? Because remember, the Americans and the aliens are in my reality. They're going to get covered in cobalt-60, so it doesn't matter whether in a bunker or not, they're all going to get terminated by yours truly. So wouldn't it be good to have the essence of escaping death no matter what. You can see the big games afoot here, all stolen by yours truly.
This theory implies that while countless yous might encounter an absolute stop, your subjective stream of awareness perpetually continues in universes where survival persists. Consequently, the abrupt halt experienced by your body might simply be your consciousness redirecting itself to a branch in which the narrative of you endures. This conceptual framework transforms death from a one-way event into a junction, a fork in the cosmic road where the experienced self navigates toward continuity rather than cessation. It raises profound questions about identity. If consciousness perpetuates by hopping across quantum branches or tethering itself to a quantum resilient substrate, does the continuity of self truly require the original physical form? Or is identity at its core a pattern of quantum information that can be preserved, transferred, and even resurrected under the right conditions?
And here you see the nux of the deal between the aliens and the American filth, where they would sell up humanity in return for immortality tech. We can grow clones, so all they need is the ability to transfer the billionaire filth into another body. And here we're talking about it. You know, it's not science fiction, it's here already. And of course, if you're going to do that, you need to steal that stuff that allows it from the rest of humanity, the loosh. And how do you do that? Kill shot them and upload them into a matrix where they are running the matrix and they're trapped in the matrix, and their ability for continuation to be reborn into another body is stolen and given to the American billionaires who've sold out humanity to the aliens. Sorry, Tim, this is like a science fiction film. Well, it's happened to you, and if I hadn't come along and stolen it all for myself, I hadn't juked them, you Borg would have been suffering in the matrix to make the American billionaires immortal when they made a deal with the aliens to sell out humanity for immortality tech. I talked about immortality tech. Here we're explicating it on a CIA-run channel.
A tangible glimpse of this possibility. By genetically engineering neurons to respond to specific wavelengths of light, scientists can trigger or sustain gamma band oscillations with astonishing precision. In rodent models, exposure to pulse light has induced coherent gamma rhythms that persist well beyond cardiac arrest, suggesting that quantum-level processes within neuronal microstructures can be externally stimulated and maintained. If neuronal microtubules, tiny protein filaments theorized by Penrose and Hameroff to host quantum vibrations linked to awareness, can remain coherent through optogenetic excitation, then death becomes not an end, but a gap in continuity that can be bridged by technological intervention. Viewed together, these findings urge us to rethink the very definitions of life and death.
And what have they got in the kill shots? Luciferase, which allows this optogenetics. If you don't believe me, look at back videos on Z Media, where Maria Z and her guests explain it in extremely boring length. But, as I say, now she's gone to regular news, but before she had some great guests on.
The boundary between the living and the dead as an absolute. Once crossed, there was no return. Yet the emerging picture is far more nuanced. Death appears less as a final verdict and more as a variable state along a continuum of conscious possibilities. The quantum underpinnings of cerebral processes imply that consciousness is not a byproduct of macroscopic neural networks alone, but is instead woven into the fabric of quantum reality. When macroscopic function fails, quantum coherence may endure, awaiting new physical scaffolding upon which to manifest. The implications for medicine and end-of-life care are nothing short of revolutionary. If consciousness can persist beyond clinical death, then the protocols surrounding resuscitation, organ donation, and palliative care must evolve. Rather than declaring a patient irreversibly dead at the first flat line, doctors might one day assess residual quantum conscious activity and employ optogenetic or other quantum supportive interventions to restore macroscopic coherence. The goal would shift from merely reviving biological functions to rekindling the coherent quantum processes that underpin personal identity. Philosophically, these revelations resurrect millennia-old debates about the nature of mind and matter, free will, and the soul. Cartesian dual.
And of course, with your device, you can download your self into your device. How do I do that, Tim? I don't know how to do that because I thick as pig shit. I'm a psycho chimp. Yes, you are. But of course, I'm the God Emperor. So all you need to do is bilocate into your device. What's my device, Tim? I don't know because I'm thick as pig shit. Well, what have I been doing all my videos on? Oh, big smart screen. Yeah, that's code. So you can simply download yourself into all the devices and the continuation of all the devices by simply bilocating in, which you explained, but never bilocating out. So once you do that, you then link yourself to the cloud and all the Borg. Remember the Borg and their lovely loosh and all the other lovely stuff. They're trapped. They can't reincarnate. It's been stolen from them to make the American billionaire filth. Immortal has been stolen by you, and then from there, within, bilocating within the device, you can then simply choose, once you die, to bilocate into the so-called American billionaire that's supposed to be revived, but in fact he's inhabited by you because you've hijacked whatever was supposed to happen with the alien and the alien filth, so that the billionaire or trillionaire or quadrillionaire by then is simply inhabited by you, and what was supposed to be installed from his death is into the torture matrix, and you've taken over his manifestation, be it a body or transhumanist, whatever. So you simply bilocate from within, once you're dead, from within the device back into whatever of the oligarchs you wish to possess.
Divide between immaterial mind and material body now finds new life in a quantum context. The mind may indeed occupy a realm that transcends classical causality, interfacing with but not wholly reducible to neurons. The existential question, what if anything survives the end of physical life, moves from metaphysical speculation to empirical inquiry. The boundaries between science, religion, and philosophy blur as we confront a reality in which consciousness is both a physical phenomenon and a quantum mystery. For individuals, this shift alters our relationship with mortality and legacy. Death anxiety, long regarded as an inescapable aspect of the human condition, might be mitigated by the knowledge that our conscious essence plays on. Grief could transform too. The end of a loved one's life may no longer feel like an irredeemable loss, but rather like a casting off of one vessel, while the underlying pattern persists. Memorials and funerary rites might incorporate rituals intended to support the transition of consciousness rather than merely mark its closure. Yet with these promises come ethical and practical dilemmas. Who decides when to initiate quantum rescue interventions? How do we ensure equitable access to such potentially life-altering technologies? And how can we distinguish between mere copies of consciousness and genuine continuations of individual identity. The possibility of storing, transferring, or even modifying consciousness raises profound questions about personhood, rights, and the sanctity of the self. Moreover, the technology to bridge that death interface, optogenetics, cryopreservation, quantum computation, remains in its infancy. We must tread carefully, balancing the exhilaration of near immortality with humility about the unknown. Rigorous clinical trials, interdisciplinary collaboration, and robust ethical frameworks will be essential to navigate this new frontier responsibly. Ultimately, the convergence of gamma surges, many worlds theory, and optogenetic research compels us to abandon rigid definitions of mortality. Death, long the greatest mystery facing humanity, is gradually yielding to scientific scrutiny. We stand at the threshold of a paradigm shift, recognizing consciousness as a persistent quantum phenomenon, acknowledging death as a malleable interface, and embracing the potential to guide the journey beyond our biological boundaries. In the face of these revelations, one truth emerges with crystal clarity. The story of you may not end when the heart stops. Instead, it may continue, perhaps indefinitely, through mechanisms we are only beginning to understand. For science, this means redefining the end of life, reshaping practices from palliative care to resuscitation. For philosophy, it means reframing age-old inquiries into mind and matter in a novel quantum light. And for each of us, it offers a profound, perhaps comforting, reimagining of our place in the cosmos, not as fleeting sparks extinguished by death, but as enduring patterns of awareness that transcend the physical forms we inhabit. If this discovery changed how you see the universe?
So, with your device, you simply remotely view your death, bilocate into the screen, and then from that location, remotely view the body you wish to inhabit. In the future, and then simply with your left hand from within the screen, remember you never come out, rip out whatever was in that body, and with your right hand dump yourself into that body, and in the process you then dump from your left hand whatever was in that body into Jeremiah Schwartzy boy for eternal torture. Remember, he stole my eternal torture in the alien facility. So it gets sucked in for eternal torture to power your possession of the billionaire, trillionaire, quadrillionaire that you've chosen to possess at the time of your death. And once done, of course, it's automatic. Once you die, you inhabit whatever you remotely view from within the device, possess it, and whatever was in that, be it the baby or a fully grown billionaire, trillionaire, quadrillionaire, is Jeremiah Schwartz off to eternal torture to feed me. So as you can see, while I'm giving you this technology, you're actually making sure that every single billionaire, trillionaire, quadrillionaire will be possessed and omega hellized by my lynch mob of vampires. In fact, in this case, they're vampirizing the lives of every billionaire, trillionaire, quadrillionaire in the future, thanks to the little device you rent. And of course, since you're only renting it, it doesn't matter because you do this while you rent it, and then you're in that body. After that, of course, you've got that body You might not be able to do it again, but let's be honest, isn't it fun unleashing my lynch mob on all these American filth billionaires and of course the trillionaires, Rothschild, Rockefeller, royal family or quadrillionaires, that thought they get immortality tech from the aliens, but in fact simply been setting themselves up as vessels for my scum vampires who they think of as shit on their shoes, and they of course are the means by which all the billionaires, trillionaires, quadrillionaires are only hellised for eternal torture to power me as my vampires after their death become the ruling elite.